Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Don't Mess with the Holidays. Disclaimer, this story isn't mine, it's from a friend. Backstory, we live in Portugal. Here there is a law that states that if someone abandons a plot of land and that is used by someone else for a minimum of 20 years, that person has the right to claim the land for themselves. This friend of mine has inherited a house in a town. This town is basically a beach holiday town. The rich people of the city nearby often had a house and spent the whole summer there. This was in the early 20th century. Some people still do that, including my friend. So his family has been using a spot right next to their house as a playground for the kids. For way more than 20 years, in fact for over 50. They hadn't yet needed to claim it since the owner didn't do anything to it, and as the whole neighborhood used it, doing that would be a holish. Until 2 years ago, when he decided to sell it to a couple that built a 2-story house there. The house completely ruins the view that he had over the sea and also ruins the look of the neighborhood due to its differences to other houses. So my friend decided to claim the land. This was before the house was built, but since Portuguese justice is slow, the house was already fully built when it ended, this time with the approval of the other neighbors. The couple that had bought it had some friends in the justice system. The wife's mother was a retired judge, her sister was a very well-known and respected lawyer, so they managed to overcome my friend's claims on a technicality, but from the start it was obvious that my friend should have got it. The way they got it was very shady. They only won because they knew people, and this is why he decided to get his revenge. The street between the two houses had free parking everywhere. This is because most people in the neighborhood are friends and don't have garages, so they park in front of their house. But the annoying neighbors had a garage. My friend had a truck that once was used for a restaurant of his, and he parked it right in front of their garage door permanently. It was legal since they hadn't paid the town council a yearly fee to have non-parking spot there. After a few months they decided to get that. That costs €8,000 a year to maintain. Until this point it was more out of petty revenge. But the annoying neighbors had threatened him to remove his vehicle before that. They have said they would throw rocks at his windows, which they once did, that they would flood his garden, which they did repeatedly, and even that they would kill his dog, a German Shepherd. They tried that using a knife, but the dog bit the guy on his leg, and as you know, those dogs bite hard. The threats were all recorded by my friend, since he would record every conversation he'd have with them in person or over the phone. He had taken pictures of the window and the garden. He sued them, and this time the influences weren't enough. They had to pay a €10,000 repair for the window and garden. He has a friend that evaluated the costs, conveniently quite highly, and had to pay him a further €30,000 in compensation for the mental health issues it caused. But wait, there is more. Remember when they tried to kill the dog? They had done it when he wasn't home, so he never even knew about it. Out of rage, they sued my friend for his dog biting the man's leg. He had to spend a week in the hospital as it got very badly infected, and tried to make him pay for the hospital fees and compensation. But he defended himself by saying they invaded his property and even sued them for that, which led to a 1-year suspended jail time, which means if they are ever convicted of something they will spend that year in jail on top of that conviction sentence. If they don't do anything else they won't be going to jail. Hope you enjoyed this story. I certainly did when he told it to me. The next one is titled, They Want My Money. Oops. This isn't my story, but is the story of a departed uncle, R.I.P. Hudge. Backstory. In World War II, my Uncle Hudge was an engineer with the RAF. He rapidly climbed the ranks and ended up being the head engineer at a local base. After the war, he met his wife of 45 years, Eve. It was the typical post-war relationship, without children though due to complications. He quickly found a job at our village coal mine, known locally as the Pit. He went from engineer to foreman very quickly. The man had a knack for leadership, that's for sure. He and Eve, some of his RAF buddies and his sister, my grandmother, often went to Spain for holidays, at least once per year before they all retired. After that, whenever they felt like it. The family. The unfortunate truth is that family isn't always nice. My grandmother was his only surviving direct family. Eve, on the other hand, had a large family. Very large. The trouble with large families is that often there's a few bad eggs. In this case, it was quicker to count the good ones. As Hudge would put it, the trouble with eggs is, you can only tell the good ones by spinning them quick, or dunking them in water. I don't fancy going to prison. More often than not, Eve's family would drop by and ask to borrow money. Not from Eve, she had none. Hudge had always been industrious, saving as much as he could and only really spending what he had to, other than the holidays of course. The incident. When I hit 18, legal drinking age in the UK, he took me for my first beer, as my dad worked nights and had to sleep. He didn't drink, which was uncommon for him, as he was a regular at the working men's club we were in. Me, Hudge, how come you're not drinking? I can't in good conscience drink your money without you getting a sniff. Hudge, well, I suppose one can't hurt. Don't tell Nip, his name for my grandmother, Sheila, but I've just been diagnosed with diabetes type 2, don't want to take any chances. Me, I'll keep your secret, but you need to tell her, just on the off chance. Hudge, I'll tell her in good time kiddo, now get it down you before it goes flat. Neither of us took much notice to the people around us, so we didn't notice Eve's nephew in the corner. 5 years pass, I've seen him a few times, less than I'd like because of work and him going overseas, the build-up. I visited my grandparents one day to find my grandmother sobbing, with Hudge sat on the sofa. Hudge, put the kettle on kid, I need to tell you something. I make a coffee for Gran and Grandad, hot chocolate for me and green tea for Hudge. Hudge, now listen up, I've not got long on this wretched planet, but you're not to cry over me. I've been diagnosed with late-stage cancer, and couldn't be ducking happier to be leaving. To Gran, sorry Nip, I know you don't want to hear this but it has to be said. You and yours will be looked after of course, but you're not to tell even her family. To everyone, I've made up a new will. I want everyone to go to the reading. I've prepared a little gift for the family. Shortly after this chat, we found out he passed away. We kept it from my grandmother that he'd taken his own life, it'd destroy her. Let it be said that Hudge was always a man independent of others. He made his choice so Gran wouldn't suffer seeing him deteriorate over time. The revenge. We went to the reading as a family like he asked, it's the only thing he ever asked of us. We'd seen people we never met, never even heard of, so of course, there were some sullen scowls across the table. Lawyer, now that we're all here, please watch this video. Hudge has a message for you all. Hudge from beyond. Now then, I imagine this will be a shock to most of you, but I had cancer. If you're watching this, I want you to know that some of you made my last few years pleasant. Others, well, we'll get to you. To my side of the family, not one of you came to me asking if I was all right or wanted anything doing. Instead, you asked if I wanted a hand with anything. For this, I thank you. I've never had anyone do anything for me unless they were my underlings in the RAF, and I didn't aim to start when I found out I was on my way out. You knew me better than most of my close family. I'll tell you if something's wrong, good on you. Now then, let's get to the good bit. To Eve's family, you lot, where do I begin? When I took our Nip's grandson out for his first pint, apparently the walls have ears and one of you overheard me tell him I had diabetes. Shame you had to say, it's a shame it wasn't cancer. Guess you got your wish, eh? The rest of you, whenever you visited me you asked more often than not if you could borrow money. It's fine, I didn't mind lending it to you, but I did expect to get it back. So, here's how this is going to work. I've split my money and put it in trust with my oldest friend, the lawyer. Nobody is getting a thing till Eve pops her clogs, so don't bother asking. Eve can stay in the house I worked my butt off for until she either dies, or has to go into care for any reason. The house is not to be sold until after she dies. Lazy as she is, she's still my wife. Once she dies, the house is to be sold at a reasonable price to the next owners, and the money from that is to be added to the total for my finances, and split with the family. Eve's is her own and she can do with it what she wants, other than add it to my total. Lawyer, has been left instructions on this. Now, here's how it'll be split. If you've borrowed money from me and paid it back, you'll get a fair share based on your age at the time of my death. If you haven't repaid the money you borrowed, you'll still get a cut, minus what you owe me. For some of you, I hope you know I'm laughing at your squirming from beyond the grave, deserves you right. Nip, my only living family, you'll get the lion's share of whatever is there, to be done with what you will. If you're not wanting to keep it, lawyer, has been paid for any services you may require. Trust him, he's a good lad and saved my butt on more than one occasion in the war. Nip's sons will get a decent chunk to help with whatever you need, and your children will be provided for as well. 2. My mum, not once have I heard anything bad about you, you're getting a cut too, like it or lump it. Op, you've been a great help the last couple of weeks. I called you unfairly at 3 AM to help me out of the bath after finally giving up getting myself out, sorry you had to see that. You didn't have to help the next day with the decorating either, if you weren't already on your career path, you'd make a fine tradesman. You will receive a cut to be determined by the near future's events, use it how you will. To the rest of you, I'm utterly ducking disgusted to have known you. I mentioned earlier that Eve can live in the house till she dies or is put into residential care. If either of these happens, nobody is to live in the house. I don't want anyone I don't trust in there. Now quit your crying and go about your lives. Hudge, as you can imagine, people kicked up a stink about this. We nodded to the lawyer and left. Shortly after the funeral, Eve went into a retirement home with her own money. Hudges was locked up as per his request. She had more than enough to keep her afloat for many more years. A couple of months down the line, we all got called back to the lawyer's office, a little bemused. Again, we're directed to watch a video. Hudge, I'm not surprised that this video has been played, some of you just don't follow orders. If you're watching this, it means that someone I don't trust was found to be living in my house. I don't give a duck who it is, lawyer has instructions of what to do next. But for the sake of his voice and sanity, whoever was found in the house against my wishes is now stricken from the will entirely. If the others feel they want to share their money with you, that's their loss, you'll not get a penny from me. As it turns out, my cousin, who bullied me in school, and her family, as in her on and off boyfriend, 2 kids and a dog, had moved into the house after convincing Eve to move out because they needed the house. What they hadn't counted on is nosy neighbors. Hudge asked them to watch the house, and if they saw anyone new in there, or any signs of moving, to report to the lawyer for updates. In return, they'd get a cut of the money he had. They're good people. The lesson? Don't screw with a war vet. The next one is titled, Me and Karen, A Love Story. Just kidding. Karen is a total witch, but buckle up because here is my novel. My husband and I are in our late 30s and child-free. Some people on child-free said I should post here too, so enjoy the saga. My husband and I had been saving up for almost a decade to move to a tropical paradise. About 2 years ago, we bit the bullet and moved to our dream location. Housing here is super expensive, like Hawaii prices, so all we could afford was half of a duplex. It is beautiful and on the water with places for our boat. Unfortunately, Karen, Billy Bob, the boyfriend, and her 3 gremlins live in the other unit. Setup: there is some period of time we just went for a week here and there, but we live here full-time now. The entire duplex was owned by an older gentleman who rented out both sides. The sides do not match at all. One side is a 5-bedroom, 3 bathrooms. The other side of the duplex is a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom. We bought the 5-bedroom. On our side of the property, we have 90% of the backyard, a gazebo, and dockage, about 150 since it is on a corner. The other side has a small backyard, patio, and maybe 15 feet of dockage. The rental leases say the renters are entitled to their specific backyards, but there were no fences or anything, so all the renters shared the entire backyard. After we bought the house, Karen immediately tried to throw her weight around that they expected to continue with that privilege. I told her if she asked politely, we would try to accommodate her. She thought this meant she could use our backyard whenever she wanted. Party incident: one day my husband and I are enjoying some drinks outside when a delivery truck shows to set up a giant blow-up thing in our backyard. I asked Karen what the duck she thought she was doing and she said it was her kid's birthday. Then she had the gall to say it was a family and friends only event, so we had to stay inside our house. Not wanting to be a total a-hole and ruin some little girl's birthday, I told Karen after this she had no access to our backward, period. Karen shrugged and kept setting up for the party. During the party, a drunken adult wandered into our house which shocked us all. I said Karen's house is the other side, and he said, oh, Karen said she owned the whole property and to use whichever bathroom was available. I directed him to Karen's bathroom, and soon after she came storming into our house, screaming about how dare we make her look bad to her friends and how selfish we are, we couldn't even spare one bathroom. She said we didn't deserve all this space with just us. I told Karen to get the hell out of my house or I would be calling the cops. She finally left and the party wrapped up shortly after. Backyard remodel. After the party incident, we decided we needed to clearly define the backyard and build a fence. While we were spending the money, we decided to update the patio, put in a fire pit, and an outdoor kitchen. While the contractor was on site, nosy Karen had to come investigate. Since the fence would be the last thing built, I was vague and just stuck to telling her about the patio update. You could see her face light up because of course in her mind, what's ours is hers. When the workers started on the fence, Karen came out screaming for the work to stop. I went outside and told the workers to keep working and told Karen to butt out. Of course, in true Karen fashion, she called the cops. What happened next was hilarity on my part after explaining to the cop that we were building a fence on our property and the landlord, of which Karen was not, knew about it. When the cop gave Karen a stern lecture, I thought her head was going to explode. She went back into her house and slammed the sliding door so hard it sounded like something cracked. We got our fence and I thought that would be in the end, but of course not. The boat incident. One day, Billy Bob entered the picture and he was as much a terrible neighbor as Karen. He would throw cigarette butts and empty beer cans over our fence for disrespecting his woman. I didn't know Paradise had trailer trash, but Billy Bob is the epitome of the stereotype. Billy Bob has a boat. A 30-foot fishing boat to be precise. Of course, that side of the duplex only has 15 feet of dockage. Since we have so much dockage and only one boat, we rent out the other dockage spots as month to month. People come and go, so if we don't receive rent from them by the end of the month and the boat disappears, we think nothing of it. We had a renter who tied up their boat on the property line, but Billy Bob wanted to park his boat and needed that space. Karen and Billy Bob posed as us. We were out of town, told the renters to be gone at the end of the month, and then parked Billy Bob's boat on the dockage. I only found out about it weeks later because the renter left a nasty review on the rental site we use. They said we were rude and went back on the verbal agreement to let them stay for 3 more months. I was like, what the duck is all this? After a phone call, I quickly put 2 and 2 together. I called the cops who told Karen and Billy Bob they need to move their boat or it would be towed, the equivalent of it anyway. Karen and Billy Bob started screaming the boat is fully on their property, it isn't. Then changed to no one can own the water, true, but a seawall is deeded, that we are liars, and at some point Billy Bob punched a cop and went to jail. I felt bad for the cops, so took them all snacks the next day with a note apologizing for neighbor drama. I ended up winning my small claims suit against them for lost rental income, but of course haven't seen a dime. I eventually convinced the dockage renters to come back and gave them a few months free as compensation. Final revenge. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Get ready for a juicy justice boner. So with the collapsing market, we were trying to figure out what to do with our savings when a perfect opportunity opened up. The landlord who owned both properties was in desperate need of some cash and was tired of managing the property from 2,000 miles away, because of course Karen is a Karen and called him weekly for every little thing. His only stipulation was we let the poor single mum who has been his renter for 8 years finish her lease, which is up in July. Since we just have money we were trying to reinvest, and because now we get to control our neighbors, heck yeah, we jumped on that. Since we didn't need a realtor or mortgage and an inspection had been done just a year ago for the old landlord to refinance, everything closed in just under 2 weeks. Karen was aware of a change of ownership. We registered the property under an LLC, but didn't know who, until 8 days ago. I went over to Karen's house and knocked on the door. Karen answered with a, "What the duck do you want, idiot?" I smiled, handed her our landlord information, and sweetly reminded her rent was due by Friday, but she could just hand me the check if that was easier. I've always heard descriptions of people's faces turning white, but this was the first time I have actually seen it. I told Karen that we are honoring her lease until the end of July, but afterwards she had better make plans to move because we instead to remodel it before these next tenants moved in. By which Edit, a lot of people misunderstood the beginning. Let's call our side of the duplex, Duplex Op. The other duplex is Duplex Karen. We purchased Duplex Op. After we bought it, Duplex Op was no longer a rental. Both Duplex Op and Duplex Karen were for sale independently, but we only had the money to buy Duplex Op. Duplex Karen is still a rental because it has never sold. Now we own both Duplex Op and Duplex Karen. Duplex Karen is still a rental. Duplex Op is still not a rental. When we made property improvements to Duplex Op, it was ours and not a rental. Update number 1, not much to update, folks. Karen and family's lease isn't up until the end of July. Rent has been paid on time. As far as I know, she doesn't have a new place lined up. We've served her 30-day notice we will not be renewing the lease. We also offered in writing that we will prorate July and waive the termination fee if they want to leave before the end of the lease. Beyond the near-weekly loud parties and having to call the police because the kids were throwing lit fireworks at our boat, not much beyond the norm. Update the 2nd of August 2020, long story short, Karen and family is still in the place and not paying any rent. They were served with eviction, but due to COVID stuff we can't actually do anything about it. At least Karen and Billy Bob had a giant fight which ended up in him being arrested and he hasn't returned. I've been told by our lawyer, once some laws are changed, removed in September, we can have the police escort him off the property that day since we've already filed the eviction. It's just a shit show right now. Karen is being extra smug. She tried to pushing her bounds and kept coming over to our property. A talk with the cops set her straight, but she's playing music loud and just tossing her trash everywhere. We really wanted to move our elderly parents in after a quick remodel because Dad needs shoulder surgery badly and Mum now needs a walker. They need more care and it's getting harder driving 2 hours a day to do that. Our parents want their own space though and won't live on our side with us. My husband and I are trying not to be angry and make things worse with Karen, but we are both exhausted. Things just suck. The last one is titled, Life Lesson. Don't mess with people who make your food. In or around 1978 I was a teenaged fast food worker. At this time America was having a little diplomatic situation with Iran. Hostages were being held. And people were up in arms against Muslims in general. Yep. Things never really change. We had 2 brothers working there who had recently been hired. Raju and his younger brother Ravi. Now those of you who are a little more sophisticated might recognize these are Indian names. Given to them by their Indian parents who were Hindus from India. But of course they were brown and vaguely Middle Eastern looking. Although one customer thought they were Mexican. Racist people usually aren't overly intellectual. One weekend night we are swamped. The grill is cranking out burgers at a breakneck pace. When they show up, 4 20-something douche-womps. They actually start yelling past the cashiers to the backline workers. Ducking Iranians. Go back to your own country. We're gonna be waiting for you when you get off. We're gonna kick your butt. Just a full couple minutes of 4 idiots shouting the dumbest crap you've ever heard. At first I was right in the center section. So I pointed at myself with a, who me? Look. All wide-eyed innocence. The brothers never said a word. They just kept working. They were too cool to have deal with these idiots. The 4 douche wouldn't give it up. Ducking Iranians. Blah blah blah. When their order came up I made sure their very special burgers were segregated from everyone else's. When the cashier started bagging their orders I directed her to grab these burgers. Specifically. Which she did. I looked at the ringleader and said, enjoy your meal. Very cheerfully, too cheerfully. Under my breath I muttered, I ducking dare you, right now I'm betting that you're asking, what did you do to their food? Well my friends. You really don't want to know. When you have a group of upset teenagers making your food, let's just say we got creative. How much spit is too much? It's a question for the ages. What's the biggest booger you can hide under a pickle? Pretty big actually. Again. This lesson is for all the Karens and Chads and racists and entitled idiots everywhere. Be a full-time idiot, treat everyone like the lowly scum they are, except the people who handle your food. because sometimes revenge is a burger served piping hot. Thanks for listening.